Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star Part 200 based on novel. So let's start. Long Haen had already understood the moment Austin Griffin attacked him. Howu was no longer present. It could even be said to be devoured by Austin Griffin. Currently, all that was before him was the god of heavenly wrath, the nine-headed chimera, Austin Griffin, who wholeheartedly wanted to destroy everything. He was no longer Howu. As a result, he could not allow Austin Griffin to succeed no matter what. He knew he was not Austin Griffin's opponent, yet he still launched an attack. Long Haen happened to be extremely calm in that moment, because there was definitely a purpose to his attack. Austin Griffin frowned, as if he was still rather unwilling to attack Long Haen. He allowed the attack from the Eye of Brahm to land on him. He did not even try to dodge. As the purplish golden light landed on Austin Griffin, all it created was a brilliant haze of light. It failed to harm him at all. In the next moment, the huge eye turned into a streak of purplish golden light, sweeping past Austin Griffin. It was the second move of the three moves of Brahm, the fleeting youth that Long Haen had partially created himself. Before, he had used this attack to kill the star demon god Visago. Now, he was using it on Austin Griffin. Austin Griffin remained where he was. Long Haen's attacks did not seem to affect him at all. He only frowned as he turned and looked at Long Haen. It was also at this moment that a huge, purple figure of light lit up behind Long Haen. It was a strange hexagram. The hexagram shone with purplish golden light. All of the elements in the air, even including Austin Griffin's aura, gathered towards the hexagram at an alarming rate. Long Haen began to shine with intense light, as the tough aura even seemed like it was going to rip his own body to pieces. Austin Griffin's expression finally changed and he finally moved. With a flash, he arrived before Long Haen and planted a palm strike on Long Haen's chest. Long Haen smiled instead. He had been waiting for this moment. The purple hexagram behind him lit up and the final attack out of the three moves of Brahm, the world's ultimate. The purple hexagram suddenly became illusionary, revolving as it distorted, forming a huge purple swirl. In that moment, the world seemed to lose all color and everything seemed to merge into one. At the same time, in the world without the rays of the sun, moon, and stars, a ball of nine-colored golden light shot out from Long Haen's left wrist, fusing with the purple light, before hurling towards Austin Griffin, who was just centimeters away. Long Haen was set hurtling towards the ground by Howu's palm strike, landing heavily in a deep pit. However, anyone with discerning senses could tell that Austin Griffin did not use much force against him at all. Although Long Haen smashed into the ground, he leapt back up in the next moment. However, Austin Griffin's situation seemed slightly worse. He was covered in nine-colored light as a small hole that penetrated his body appeared on his chest. The attack of the world's ultimate combined with the divine snail shield of sun and moon pushed all the powers that Long Haen could unleash to the limit. Before such a strong attack, even the god of heavenly wrath, the nine-headed chimera, Austin Griffin, was injured. However, just when everyone was taken aback by surprise and joy, Austin Griffin's wound closed up rapidly with a ripple, as if nothing had happened in the first place. He looked at Long Haen on the ground coldly. "My master, do you really plan on discarding our ties of companionship? Unfortunately, you're nowhere close to being powerful enough. I've said that in this realm, there is nothing that can threaten me. Do you really think you can manage just by yourself?" Some misery appeared in Long Haen's eyes. He sighed. "That's true. Of course I can't harm you with my power. However, you've devoured Howu's spirit, so no matter the price, I have to destroy you. You've said that I'm the chairman of the Temple Union, the Knight of Glory and Leadership. As the leader of the humans, I must protect the humans. I must protect this realm from you. You can begin, grandfather." The demon god emperor's heart shuddered when he heard Long Haen refer to him as grandfather. He glanced at Long Haen in some disbelief. What he saw was the determination in Long Haen's eyes. The demon god emperor immediately raised the devil dragon sword. With his cultivation as a half-god, Austin Griffin was unable to subdue him using his pressure alone. It was also in the moment the demon god emperor raised his devil dragon sword that he seemed to illuminate the world. The purpleness in the sky finally changed, while Austin Griffin's expression changed drastically as well. He finally sensed an existence that could threaten him. Afterwards, all the demon god pillars in the distance lit up. With a single movement, the demon god emperor immediately vanished, while the dark golden devil dragon pillar expanded at an alarming rate. It was not just him. Aegis did the same, unleashing the power of his own demon god pillar as much as possible. In that moment, the demon god pillars all lit up before the dragon-resisting mountain pass and quickly flew into the air. Even the demon god pillars that no longer had demon gods shone as brightly as they could in that moment. Long Houchen's attack earlier was not to defeat Austin Griffin, because he knew he did not have that ability. By communicating with the demon god emperor through their gazes and their souls, he knew what he needed to do. His attack against Howu was to cover the demon god emperor, to make enough time for him. Who would have thought that the humans and demons who had opposed each other for over 6,000 years, who were just enemies a moment earlier, would actually work together now? It was exactly Bose Austin Griffin had not imagined this that he ended falling into the trap that the demon god emperor had prepared. God-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens. The devil dragon pillar emitted a bellow from the demon god emperor that was almost crazy. The dark golden light immediately surged into the sky, as if it really did reach the limits of the sky. A dense, dark golden light immediately covered Howu's body, causing him to pause despite trying to take action earlier. Afterwards, a purple moon and orange star lit up at the same time in the sky. This was the power of the moon demon god pillar and star demon god pillar. The three demon gods immediately formed the core array of the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens. The three demon god pillars trapped Austin Griffin inside firmly. At the same time, the 17 other demon god pillars flew over. Beams of light connected them together, forming a huge cage-like structure in the air, sealing Austin Griffin inside. Each demon god pillar shone with different light as well. The purple color from Austin Griffin was actually torn to shreds within the cage. The god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens was originally created to deal with Austin Griffin's powers, so everything about it obviously opposed him. At the same time, streaks of light lit up in the distance. Demon god pillars actually ripped through space and appeared before the dragon-resisting mountain pass one after another. Whether it were the demon god pillars that had remained within the demon territory to protect them, or the demon god pillars that Samijina and Marbas had taken with them to attack the southeastern fort and Myriad Beasts mountain pass, all of them had gathered in that moment. This was what the demon god emperor had been preparing. As the leader of the 72 demon gods, what he wanted to do was to unleash the powers of all the demon gods and recreate the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens. Austin Griffin hovered there silently, as if he had actually become trapped by the great array. He just watched as the demon god pillars appeared one by one, before merging into the huge cage, trapping his body there. This was the true, most terrifying power that the demons possessed. Just the aura made the powerhouses of the Temple Union feel that it was impossible to contend against. Only now did Long Houchen understand just how great of a loss it was to the demons that the Moon Demon God's betrayal would be. As the one in control of the Moon Demon God, if he joined the human side, it would mean that even the Demon God Emperor would not be able to use the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens. That was because the array was based off the combined powers of the Devil Dragon Pillar, Moon Demon God Pillar and Star Demon God Pillar. If Aegis refused to take part, the array could not be created. However, was the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens really able to retrain Howu? After all, not all the demon god pillars remained. When Long Houchen led he bright glimmer of hope against the demons in the past, he had destroyed several of them already. Thinking of it now, Austin Griffin really had taken preventative measures ahead of time. Could the incomplete god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens really destroy him? Scorn appeared in the depths of Austin Griffin's eyes. He slowly raised his right hand and extended his index finger, waggling it gently. I've said that the past won't repeat itself. Since I'm bold enough to stand in your completed formation, I'm obviously not afraid of this god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens or whatever it's called. The array's not even complete, but even if it was, so what? The reason why I had suffered so much last time was because I was completely unprepared and there were a large number of human powerhouses powering the domain. After all these years, your array is no longer the same as before. The blood and essence from all the humans back then has already dispersed. My master, let me give you a great gift. I'll destroy the foundations of the demon race first. As he said that, Austin Griffin's blue eyes suddenly lit up. The great light immediately expanded. At the same time, a purple, hazy light expanded from his body as well. The cage in the air actually expanded with Austin Griffin's actions. In the next moment, the god of heavenly wrath, the nine-headed chimera, Austin Griffin, demonstrated its true terror to everyone. A purple sun suddenly seemed to appear within the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens. The intense purple light immediately drowned out all the magnificent colors from all the demon god pillars. The purple light showed no signs of subsiding wherever it engulfed. A terrifyingly colossal figure appeared in the air, within the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens. The god of heavenly wrath, the nine-headed chimera, had finally revealed its original form, its terrifying original form. The demon god emperor was already terrifying enough when he unleashed his true form as a devil dragon emperor, but compared to Austin Griffin right now, the demon god emperor seemed like a child. 10,000 meters. That's right, it was a colossal body over 10,000 meters long. It was like a city had suddenly appeared in the air. The colossal body was covered in huge scales that spanned several dozen meters across. Its four thick limbs seemed like it could make the ground collapse at any time. A huge pair of wings unfurled, also spanning almost 10,000 meters. The most terrifying part about it was that 9 huge heads protruded from its thick neck. Long Haochen found the shape of each huge head so familiar. He had personally watched each one of them grow, but now, the 9 heads seemed so foreign because every single one of them had lost their original color. All that was left was the grayness filled with destruction and madness. Long Haochen found the head in the very center the most foreign. In the past, when he first met Howu, it only had little fire. Afterwards, from fusing with his blood, little light appeared. The 2 heads had always been in the center of Howu's heads, yet now, another head had actually appeared between little fire and little light. It was completely gray and almost twice as large as all the other heads. A heavy aura of death constantly shone from its eyes, while the gazes of the 8 other heads would reflected the same thing in the central head. Little light and little fire were parted to the left and right, followed by the other heads. It really was not Howu any longer. Although Howu possessed one body and had almost a single mind, there were still 8 souls after all. Now, only Austin Griffin's soul remained. There was only one, the one that represented destruction. As soon as the god of heavenly wrath, the 9-headed chimera, Austin Griffin, had exposed its colossal original form, the spacious god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens became filled to the brim. Every single demon god pillar that formed the array lit up as the demon god emperor and the moon demon god powered them. Terrifying pressure permeated the sky. The pressure was so great that it pushed all the powerhouses below the 9th step to the ground, unable to move. Even the 9th step powerhouses were barely able to remain on their feet. A few hours had already passed since this holy war had begun. No one had imagined that it would develop like this in the end. The final, strongest opponent was not actually the demon god emperor who led the demons, but Long Haochen's mount and companion. This was an unbelievable sight, but it did happen while the demons right now were doing everything they could to seal Austin Griffin. The humans were unable to do anything. The demons turned out to be so terrifying when they worked together. No wonder they did not have the power to create or produce. They were not a race in the first place, but a terrifying array assembled from 72 divine tools. The human powerhouses could not assist with the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens. But at this moment, Long Haochen was not actually paying attention to Austin Griffin, who was trapped in the air. Instead, he looked back. His gaze first landed on his mother. Baiyu was unconscious due to becoming overly emotional earlier. It was Kia who was supporting her, using her power of purification to protect her future mother-in-law. When Long Haochen turned around, Kia saw his eyes as well. For some reason, Kia's heart seemed to skip a beat. Long Houchen's gaze was very calm and very gentle. At the same time, it was filled with attachment and reluctance. Suddenly, Kia seemed to understand something. Fear filled her eyes. No, Houchen, don't. However, there was nothing she could do now. Even with her cultivation, she was unable to break free from the terrifying pressure from Austin Griffin and the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens. She had been immobilized by the pressure. All she could do was use the power of her domain to protect Yu and herself. Long Houchen shook his head at her gently. His lips moved, as if he was mouthing something to Kia. Kia could only see the shape of his lips, but she immediately understood what he was saying. Tears immediately flowed out, turning into countless, tiny specks of water element that dispersed in the air under the great pressure. Long Houchen then looked to his father. Long Xingyu was completely immobilized as well. When Long Houchen's eyes landed on his body, he said something to him as well. Long Xingyu understood as well. The divine knight of adjudication and trial who had been so tough in the past was now covered in tears as well. However, there was nothing he could do either. Long Houchen glanced past every single member from the bright glimmer of hope, before glancing past the powerhouses of the Temple Union and the Eternal Heroes. Every single one of them could see the reluctance in his eyes, but they gradually saw his determination as well. Long Houchen, we can't last much longer. I never thought that you would be accompanying me to the next world. However, I feel very happy to be able to hear you refer to me as grandfather. The demon god emperor's voice resounded out, but Austin Griffin suddenly seemed to realize something and his originally peaceful body began to struggle crazily. The 9 huge heads were like 9 super-divine tools, violently colliding against the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens. The power of the god of heavenly wrath was just too terrifying, so terrifying that even the combined power of over 60 demon god pillars was still not enough to oppose him. Under the pressure, the powerful demon god pillars gradually collapsed. The first pillars to become cracked were the 3 in the center, the devil dragon pillar, the moon demon god pillar and the star demon god pillar. With the appearance of the cracks, Austin Griffin struggled even more violently. The terrifying aura of destruction seemed like it could break free at any time. Long Houchen raised the purplish golden heavy sword in his hand. He looked calmly at the terrifyingly powerful god of heavenly wrath that spanned over 10,000 meters in the distance and murmured, Howu, I was the one who brought you to this world. Now, I'll take you away. Perhaps in the next world, we can still be brothers. Xiaolei, come out. With a green flash of light, the fairy of God Yi Xiaolei immediately emerged from Long Houchen's chest. Her petite face was also covered in tears in that moment, but she had no intention of stopping Long Houchen because she knew that this was the only method that could work now. Long Houchen nodded at Yi Xiaolei and said gently, Xiaolei, you've already fused with my power of light. Even if you don't attach yourself to someone else, you will still be a fairy of God. You won't die due to the different environment. Take care. As he said that, he raised his right hand and a layer of purplish golden light enveloped Yi Xiaolei, blocking out the pressure from Austin Griffin and the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens for her. It gently sent her to Caia's side. Perhaps, this is the best ending, Long Houchen smiled. In that moment, everything and everyone he had once associated with no longer seemed so important. He was filled with reluctance, with unwillingness, but he had no other choice now. The purplish golden heavy sword condensed from the power of Howu's bloodline was slowly raised. Long Houchen glanced at the struggling Austin Griffin deeply and said coldly, You've stripped Howu of his soul, so I'll strip you of everything. As he said that, the heavy sword had left his hands. It was directly thrown into the air. The sword turned into a streak of purple light when it flew 30 meters into the air. It flew downwards, with the target being Long Houchen's own head. That was correct. When Long Houchen and the demon god emperor's eyes met, he had already made his decision. Through the pulses of their souls, the demon god emperor told him that there was nothing in this world that could defeat Austin Griffin. Even if the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens reappeared, it was impossible to kill Austin Griffin again when he was appeared. The only weakness that Austin Griffin possessed was Long Houchen. Only Long Houchen's blood pact with him formed his only restraint. It was also the final hope. As a result, when Long Houchen rose into the air and launched a suicidal attack against Austin Griffin, his plan with the demon god emperor had already begun. Long Houchen attacked Austin Griffin to make time for the demon god emperor, so the demon god emperor could use the incomplete god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens, while the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens was not to kill Austin Griffin. It was so the demon god emperor could make time for Long Houchen, time for him to commit suicide. Long Houchen and Austin Griffin were connected to one another by a blood pact. As long as Long Houchen died and ended the connection of the blood pact, Austin Griffin would die. This was also why Austin Griffin did not harm him at all when he attacked Austin Griffin with his full strength. It was not because Austin Griffin was benevolent, but rather that the blood pact made him cautious, unwilling to harm Long Houchen. It was possible to say that Long Houchen was the god of heavenly wrath's only weakness. Currently, the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens had restrained Austin Griffin, just so he could not interfere or stop Long Houchen from committing suicide. The array combined the power of over 60 demon god pillars, and they had sealed up Austin Griffin in the past as well. Even though they were incomplete now, unable to recreate what happened in the past, they could retrain Austin Griffin for a period of time at the very least. This was enough for Long Houchen. Long Houchen's mind was empty. Everything that had once bothered him was gone now. He was about to depart. No matter how reluctant he was, this was his only choice for the sake of all the lives on the Shimordalu. Purple light shone. Under the full force of Long Houchen, as long as the great power of destruction penetrated his head, it would be impossible to save Long Houchen even if the holy necromancer, slumbering Calamity Elux, was revived. Countless sobs of sorrow rang out from below. While only the closest people to Long Houchen understood what he was doing, when the powerhouses of the Temple Union saw this sight, all of them could sense Long Houchen's sacrificial spirit. In that moment, he seemed so frail, yet also so determined. In that moment, all of the human powerhouses who had once come into conflict with Long Houchen could not help but feel ashamed about themselves. As chairman of the Union, he completely deserved his title. Brother, don't. Just as Long Houchen was in peace and the purple streak of light was about to touch his head, an urgent voice that he found to be extremely familiar and indescribably close rang out from the depths of Long Houchen's soul. The purplish golden heavy sword over his head seemed to be frozen by some kind of power. The tip of the sword had penetrated Long Houchen's scalp, but it did not fall any further. Long Houchen suddenly opened his eyes and cried out, "Howu!" Indeed, the voice belonged to Howu. It did not come from Austin Griffin. No matter how powerful Austin Griffin, who was currently trapped in the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens, was, he was unable to stop Long Houchen at a time like this. What stopped Long Houchen's suicide attempt was the power of his own bloodline. It was also in that moment that Long Houchen could clearly sense that the partial bloodline that belonged to Howu in his body had completely surged up. The purplish golden sword in the air immediately turned into a streak of purple light, merging into his body again, but it refused to harm him. What shocked him the most was that Austin Griffin's colossal body began to twist violently at this moment, and Long Houchen saw a pair of familiar eyes. The pair of eyes were golden, the kind of gold that represented light, while the head which the eyes belonged to rose up suddenly and smashed against Austin Griffin's central, grey head viciously. Little Light. It was Little Light. That's right. The one who had called to Long Houchen earlier was Little Light, the one who had originally born from Long Houchen's bloodline. It had actually broken out of Austin Griffin's control forcefully, allowing its mind to clear up. It rammed into the side of Austin Griffin's head, but its eyes remained fixed on Long Houchen. Within its eyes, Long Houchen could see panic, worry and deep sorrow, while the same emotions rose from Howu's bloodline within his body. Long Houchen's suicide attempt had actually awakened the sliver of consciousness that Howu had left behind in his bloodline. It was also because of the consciousness's existence that the heavy sword had stopped when Long Houchen faced death, because the bloodline belonged to Howu in the first place. Could it be Austin Griffin's scheme? Long Houchen pondered over many things in that moment. What if Austin Griffin had temporarily awakened Little Light to prevent him from dying, so he could break out of the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens and control him again? If that really was the case, Long Houchen would not be able to resist at all with Austin Griffin's great power. he would only become a puppet under the god of heavenly wrath's control in the future. However, Little Light used his actions to prove Long Houchen wrong very quickly. Austin Griffin's head of destruction that had been knocked aside let out a furious roar and turned around, glaring at Little Light. A dense, grey light enveloped Little Light. However, what Little Light did made the head of destruction fear. It opened its huge mouth and bit the end of Austin Griffin's neck, forcefully ripping out a large chunk of flesh and scales. When Austin Griffin evolved, his head of destruction was obviously not the only one that had evolved. All of the heads had evolved to the level of the god of heavenly wrath. Little Light's sudden attack could be described as a backlash of its body. Roar! The head of destruction roared out in pain, but under the attack of its grey light, Little Light's head began to tremble violently, as if it was struggling with something. At this moment, a pair of red eyes broke out of the restraint of destruction to the other side of the head of destruction. A dense and fiery aura immediately erupted, viciously biting the other side of the head of destruction's neck. Little Flame. It was Little Flame. With Little Light's awakening, Little Flame had awakened as well. Out of Howu's 9 heads, Little Light and Little Flame were the closest to him, without a doubt. One of them had been saved by Long Houchen, while the other one had been given life from Long Houchen's bloodline. In that moment, when Long Houchen was determined to sacrifice himself in order to destroy Austin Griffin, Little Light and Little Flame's consciousness had awakened. In order for Long Houchen to survive, they both did everything they could to attack the head of destruction. Due to the intense pain, Austin Griffin's colossal body writhed. Its terrifying body was still under the control of the head of destruction, while the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens finally gave way at the same time. Boom! Light exploded in the air as the demon pillars collapsed one after another before Austin Griffin's terrifying power. Its colossal body forcefully broke out of the cage as well. Just how terrifying was that? It was so terrifying that even with over 60 demon god pillars combined, they were unable to contain it any further. However, Austin Griffin currently faced unprecedented danger. Even when it was sealed within the world of black and red, it had never experienced such a great problem before. The god of heavenly wrath right now was no longer the god of heavenly wrath of the past. Little Light's existence had replaced darkness, while a portion of the blood running through Austin Griffin belonged to Long Houchen. It was the bloodline of the goddess of light. The desire for destruction had been diluted by the bloodline. Not only did Austin Griffin's 8 secondary heads possess their own minds and souls before the head of destruction had awakened, they were extremely close to Long Houchen as well. Under these circumstances, how could they just watch Austin Griffin destroy Long Houchen, their master, their elder brother who had given them life and risked his own life for them countless times? Brother, don't die. We'll help you, voices appeared one after another in Long Houchen's head. In that moment, he only sensed that his blood had completely riled up while his body was enveloped by an indescribable sense of familial love. Just how touching was it when a person had been saved from the jaws of death by familial love? Long Houchen suddenly bellowed out, "Howu, I will fight alongside you." As he said that, Long Houchen suddenly leaped up and charged towards the battlefield in the air. It was also at this moment that the greyness in the eyes of the others' heads on Howu's 2 sides receded. Little Green that represented wind was the third to awaken, followed by Little Blue who represented water with the butterfly-shaped horn. Afterwards was Little Purple with the poisonous, chrysanthemum-shaped horn and Little Yellow who represented earth with the tomato-shaped horn. The last ones to awaken were Little Gold who represented metal and Little Thunder who represented lightning. The eyes of the 8 heads all shone with different colors, but in that moment, they all had a single target, which was the head of destruction in the center. Roar! The head of destruction roared violently as it constantly let out breaths of greyness. Its colossal body struggled desperately, destroying even more demon god pillars. However, all of the heads that had recovered lunged towards it, biting the head of destruction's thick neck. No matter how powerful the head of destruction was, it was actually unable to break free from the combined mauling of the 8 heads. Large chunks of flesh mixed with a grey gas was ripped off. Before Long Houchen had managed to get close, he was blown away again by the terrifying power unleashed by the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens when it finally shattered. He landed heavily on the ground. But this time, he was not protected by the armor of eternity and creation, so blood immediately spurted out from his mouth when he hit the ground. Boom! Boom! Two other figures landed near Long Houchen. All of the demon god pillars had been crushed in the air. The terrifying elemental storm seemed like it had ripped open the entire space there, making the purple sky dark. If this terrifying storm managed to descend, then let alone the dragon-resisting mountain pass, even the Shimor Dalu would suffer irrevocable damage. At this moment, the awakening of Howu's consciousness played an extremely important role. Light of 9 different colors poured from the colossal body in the air. Just as the god-slaying array of the 10 earths and 9 heavens was completely destroyed, Howu seemed to have gained control over the main body. A dense, purple light was suddenly emitted from its colossal body, forming a huge, purple screen, forcefully blocking out the ravaging storm. It also forced the storm into a gaping spatial crack. The figures that had landed near Long Houchen were the demon god Emperor Fengxiu and the moon demon god Agaz. The 6 other demon gods who were still alive earlier had all been crushed during the Battle of the Seal, passing away with their demon god pillars. Long Houchen could clearly see that while Fengxiu and Agaz were still alive, their auras declined at an alarming rate. The destruction of the Devil Dragon Pillar and Moon Demon God Pillar had affected them heavily. Agaz had a relatively weaker cultivation, so his wounds were much worse. He was basically on his last breath. Who knew how many injuries he had? He could just barely maintain his own vitality. However, for a powerhouse on his level, he would not die as long as he still had a breath left. However, with the destruction of the Moon Demon God Pillar, his cultivation would definitely fall drastically even if he managed to survive. Compared to Agaz, the Demon God Emperor had an advantage as a half-god. While his wounds were extremely heavy such that he bled from all the apertures of his head, he still managed to climb out of the deep pit in the ground. He basically stood up at the same time as Long Houchen. Currently, the Demon God Emperor's eyes were filled with disbelief. He looked at Long Houchen beside him. Why would this happen? Why would this happen to Austin Griffin? Long Houchen raised his head to look at the intense battle between the 9 heads. He murmured, "He's not just Austin Griffin. He's also my Howu. Howu is my brother, my companion." My suicide attempt seemed to have awakened their consciousness. Howu has returned. I want to help him. I'm going to help him. As he said that, Long Houchen rose up once again. However, the Demon God Emperor grabbed him by the shoulder with a flash. Long Houchen looked back at the Demon God Emperor. They were grandfather and grandson, looking each other in the eyes. This was the first time they had looked at each other from so close without any hostility. At this moment, when all the demon god pillars were destroyed, Fengxiu actually smiled. His smile was one of relief, as well as one of indescribable liberty. "I'll help you." As he said that, the dense aura of darkness on Fengxiu quickly subsided. With a flash, he turned into a ball of dark golden light, hovering before Long Houchen. Surprisingly, this was the Devil Dragon Sword. However, the Devil Dragon Sword no longer depended on the Devil Dragon Pillar. Instead, it came from Fengxiu's body. What shocked Long Houchen even more was that he could not sense any aura of darkness from the Devil Dragon Sword at all. In particular, there did not seem to be any element at all about the hilt. There was no time for hesitation or thought. Long Houchen did not have a weapon he could use. The Divine Throne of Eternity and Creation was heavily damaged by Austin Griffin, so it could not be used anymore. Even though it could repair itself, it would take a very long time before it recovered the powers of a super-divine tool. Raising his hand, Long Houchen gripped the Devil Dragon Sword firmly and raised his head at the sky once again. The dense aura of light combined with the power of Howu's bloodline immediately covered his body in a layer of purplish golden flames. The 6 wings of his back flapped hard and Long Houchen took off into the sky with the Devil Dragon Sword that Fengxiu had transformed into. "Will doing this bring you any benefit at all?" "If I die, you will die as well," Austin Griffin roared out in a panic. Dense, grey light surged in the air. There was an ear-splitting rip and Austin Griffin's head of destruction had actually been forcefully ripped from the center under the combined effort of the other 8 heads. The grey light immediately drifted off into the distance. At the same time, its colossal body shrank at a surprising rate. Its head of destruction had been ripped off, but it clearly would not just die like that. It was where the soul of the god of heavenly wrath, the nine-headed chimera, Austin Griffin, lay. As the huge, grey head rotated in the air, it quickly assumed a human form. It was just like before, similar to Long Haochen, but his body no longer had any purple color anymore. All that was left was a grayness filled with the aura of destruction. After biting off the huge grey head, Howu's 8 heads all seemed extremely exhausted. Under the full-blown attacks of the power of destruction, each of their mouths bled with blood colored the same as their elements. However, the light in its eyes was still so determined and resolute. "Brother, don't let him escape. Kill him." Howu's voice rang out from the bottom of Long Haochen's heart. In the next moment, its colossal body turned into a purple streak of light as it charged towards Long Haochen. At the same time, the purple light that had stopped the destructive elemental storm immediately withdrew, forming a huge purple bubble enveloping Long Haochen and Austin Griffin. The dense, purple light from Howu immediately engulfed Long Haochen, dyeing him purple all over. This was fusion, a fusion between Howu and Long Haochen. Indescribably tremendous power filled every pore in Long Haochen's body as a magnificent purplish golden armor covered Long Haochen's body. The purplish golden armor was rather similar to the armor of eternity and creation from before. However, its color was much more gorgeous and dazzling. There were also many places that differed from the armor of eternity and creation. Firstly, the purplish golden armor did not have a sculpting of an angel and a dragon. What it did have was Howu's 8 heads in metal. On the 2 shoulders were little thunder and little gold, while on the chest was little light and little flame, covering the left and right side respectively. The 4 other heads appeared on Long Haochen's abdomen, waist and knees. The 8 heads had all become purple after turning into armor. Apart from their horns, the color of their eyes was the only other difference. Even when he wore the armor of eternity and creation earlier, Long Haochen did not feel that he had surpassed the boundary of that domain, but now that he was clad in the purplish gold Howu armor, he suddenly felt like he had reached a whole new level, completely entering a whole new domain. A god. This was clearly the power of a god. This was the power of a god that Howu had given him. A purple streak of light extended from Long Haochen's right hand. He quickly passed the devil dragon sword to his left hand. Wasn't it the 8-headed purplish golden Howu sword that had appeared in his right hand? At this moment, Long Haochen could not help but experience a multitude of emotions. Did he ever think there would be a day when he would break through to the level of gods? Did he ever think that he would be wielding sword that Howu and the demon god emperor had transformed into on this day either? Thrum! The devil dragon sword lit up with dense, dark golden flames. The demon god emperor Fengxiu's voice rang out, "Haochen, this is your, as well as our last chance." Austin Griffin had personally ejected its head of destruction. This is also the very core of the god of heavenly wrath's power of destruction. If you kill it, then Austin Griffin's power of destruction will never return again, because it will be purified by its own powers. Do it. As the dark golden flames burned, Long Haochen could clearly sense that the devil dragon sword had actually reached the level of gods. The dark golden flames seemed like the demon god emperor was burning its own life. What was even more admirable was that Long Haochen actually failed to sense any aura of darkness, so it did not affect him at all. "Long Haochen, you can't attack me," Austin Griffin said in exasperation. Even though his appearance was the same as Long Haochen's, the viciousness and reluctance on his face formed quite a contrast with Long Haochen. "Your Howu is a part of me, while I am the very core of the god of heavenly wrath, the 9-headed chimera. If you kill me, your Howu will die as well. He's done so much for you, yet you actually WAN. Your Howu is a part of me, while I am the very core of the god of heavenly wrath, the 9-headed chimera. If you kill me, your Howu will die as well. He's done so much for you, yet you actually want to kill him. How can you have the heart to do that? As long as you spare me, I'm willing to find a way to completely separate your Howu from me. He will be him, while I will be me in the future. We will be 2 completely different creatures. I can even promise you that I won't destroy this realm." When he heard that Howu would die as well, Long Haochen could not help but shudder. While he had already guessed it, hearing it personally from Austin Griffin threw him into mental turmoil. Brother, don't listen to him. He has to die. If he doesn't die, destruction will always be around. As long as destruction lives, then we won't have any freedom. Once he recovers his abilities, he will still devour us, but if he dies, we might still have a chance to be reborn. Kill him. Fengxiu's furious bellow rang out from the devil dragon sword. Long Haochen finally made up his mind. With alarming purple light, the dense pulses of spiritual energy immediately reached the limit. In that moment, he wielded the power of a god. A huge, purplish golden eye appeared in the air. Dark golden flames burned in the surroundings of the eyes. In that moment, the god of heavenly wrath Austin Griffin actually became rather stunned. It was heavily injured after being torn away from its original body by Howu. It did not have the powers of the god of heavenly wrath at all now, but when he saw the huge, purplish golden eye, he actually murmured to himself, "Creation, is that you? Creation, you're actually still alive. You even opening your eyes to look at me, huh?" In the next moment, the purplish golden eye of Brahm enveloped him completely with light. The three moves of Brahm, the Eye of Brahm, Fleeting Youth, and the world's ultimate. Purple appeared in the sky once more. Within the noble purple was some sorrow and determination. All of the grayness had been enveloped by the purplish golden and dark golden light in that moment. In the sky, a reluctant voice resounded, "Creation, I hate you." The purple light in the air lasted for 15 minutes before gradually fading. The humans and demons before the dragon-resisting mountain pass were no longer affected by the terrifying pressure. They gradually recovered their ability to move. The grayness vanished and all the aura of destruction vanished. What also vanished was all the demon god pillars that belonged to the demons who had reigned over the Shingmo for over 6,000 years. As the purple light gradually faded, the sky seemed to rip open. Faint, golden marks began to appear, before gradually spreading. Under the golden color, the dark clouds and darkness gradually vanished and was destroyed. A golden sun gradually revealed itself through the markings of light. The first temple head of the Night Temple, the eternal hero Xiaohua, began to tremble violently in that moment. He was an undead, so basking in the light brought him intense pain, regardless of how powerful he was. However, in that moment, he choked with sobs instead under the sunlight that grew warmer and warmer. Even though he did not have tears, he had become more emotional than he had ever been in his entire life. It was not just him. Every single eternal hero, every single human powerhouse present all stared blankly at the sunlight that grew more and more dazzling. However, they would not close their eyes no matter what. The sun seemed to be telling them that the darkness had all ended. The first rays of dawn had arrived. The age of darkness that had engulfed the Shingmo for over 6,000 years and finally come to an end. It was all over. Purplish golden light descended from the sky, landing on the ground softly just like the dazzling sunlight. From that moment on, he was no longer just a legend. He was a hero of legends and epics. He had finally led the humans in creating history, breaking out of the darkness, reducing destruction to nothingness. He was the Scion of Light, the God of Light among the humans, the chairman of the Temple Union, the one in possession of the divine throne of eternity and creation, the divine knight of glory of leadership, the hero of legends and epics, Long Haochen. Long Haochen landed on the ground softly. The armor that Howu transformed into did not have a helmet, so everyone could see that Long Haochen's handsome face was rather pale. He had completely killed Austin Griffin and the humans had finally broken free from the binds of the Age of Darkness, but there was no joy on his face at all. Instead, there was sorrow. "Howu!" Long Haochen yelled out while choking back sobs. The 8-headed purplish gold Howu sword in his hand had vanished when it landed on the ground. His armor turned into strands of purple light that wafted and flowed away. Long Haochen pressed his hands on his body, as if he was desperately trying to grab something, but he was unable to. Howu's aura grew weaker and weaker. It gradually dispersed in the air. There was a flash of dark golden light and the demon god emperor appeared 5 meters away from Long Haochen. The remaining demon powerhouses quickly gathered over, surrounding the demon god emperor and protecting their strongest ruler. However, faint black mist constantly dispersed into the air from the demons, while their auras began to rapidly weaken as well. All 72 demon god pillars had now been destroyed. The foundations of the demon race had been eradicated. All of the power from that other realm began to disperse from the demons with the destruction of the demon god pillars. Their cultivations decreased as their darkness and powers from the other realm dispersed. It was not just the regular demons. The same thing even happened to the demon god Emperor Fengxiu and the moon demon god Agaz. As a matter of fact, their powers flowed away even more quickly. Fengxiu's face was much paler than Long Haochun's. Dark purple blood constantly flowed from the corner of his lips. When he transformed into the devil dragon sword earlier and unleashed the power of a god, he had actually used all of his power to suppress his darkness element to prevent any influences over Long Haochun. Moreover, he had to endure and convert the tremendous spiritual energy with the pure power of light that Long Haochun had channeled into the weapon. Just how difficult was that? However, the demon god Emperor managed to endure all of that until Austin Griffin was completely destroyed. Currently, this leader of the demons' face was filled with relief, as if the great burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He raised his hand to signal all of the demons to fall silent. He just stood there, silently looking at the devastated Long Haochun as purple light gradually flowed from his body. Haoyue's aura grew weaker and weaker, while Long Haochun's face was already covered in tears. He could not even sense the slightest trace of Haoyue's life anymore. The god of heavenly wrath, the nine-headed chimera, Austin Griffin, was right. The head of destruction was connected with the 8 other heads. In the moment when the 8 heads led by Little Light and Little Flame bit it off, Haoyue had already offered his life to Long Haochun. Unless they allowed Austin Griffin to reattach himself where the wound was, Haoyue's life would only flow away as time went on. As the very core of Austin Griffin, it was impossible for the head of destruction to die if nothing attacked it, but Haoyue would definitely die as well upon losing his core. But in the last moment, Haoyue still used his full power to assist Long Haochun to kill Austin Griffin. This obviously was not because of how much it liked humans, or how much it pitied this realm. It was all just for Long Haochun alone. The only thing it was afraid of was that Long Haochun would be injured. It was afraid that its master, its brother's life would be under threat, which was why it used the last of its powers to help Long Haochun nullify all possible problems. But now that all the problems had been resolved, what Haoyue faced was death. It would leave this world forever. It would leave Long Haochun. Long Haochun's heart was in intense agony. The indescribable pain made him tremble uncontrollably. Even if he had died, he did not want Haoyue to leave him forever. Memories began to flash through his head. Ever since he met Haoyue for the first time on the Night Sacred Mountain, when he used his own blood to change Haoyue's element, their fates had become connected. Little Light appeared. Haoyue possessed 2 heads and had become his best companion. As Long Haochun grew, Haoyue had always accompanied him, growing with him. Gradually, Haoyue's 3rd head, Little Green, grew out, followed by Little Blue with the butterfly-shaped horn. Afterwards was Little Purple, Little Yellow, Little Gold and Little Thunder. Haoyue would grow whenever Long Haochun grew himself. Before today, Long Haochun had never suspected anything would happen to Haoyue, because Haoyue had always used its own power to protect Long Haochun, constantly assisting him in advancing forwards. There was nothing wrong with Long Haochun's trust in Haoyue. Even when it completely awakened and became the god of heavenly wrath, the 9-headed chimera, it was not Haoyue betraying Long Haochun. During the entire time, Long Haochun had been the person closest to Haoyue in his entire life. It was the same for Long Haochun. Haoyue had accompanied him as he grew, granting him even greater power. Yet, in this moment, Haoyue was actually dying because of him. How could Long Haochun accept this? The purplish gold Haoyue armor gradually vanished into the air. What replaced it was endless pain in Long Haochun's heart. He desperately tried to grab the wisps of purpleness, but the purple light would only slip through his fingers. Haoyue, Haoyue! Long Haochun called out loudly. However, there was nothing he could do now. Finally, when the final strand of purpleness departed from his body, Long Haochun swayed and collapsed on the ground with a pale face. Haoyue had left. It felt just like his heart had been completely emptied out. It was also at this moment that a gentle calling suddenly awakened Long Haochun from his sorrow. He raised his head and looked at the sky. A purple figure gradually condensed out of light. Wasn't that Howu? The current Howu only had 8 heads. Austin Griffin's soul was not present. The 8 heads, the eyes of different color, all looked at Long Houchen gently, as if it was telling him something. Howu, don't leave me, Long Houchen called out. He wanted to lunge over. But in that moment, Howu's body suddenly became illusionary in the air. It gradually condensed into its center as a purple swirl, before turning into a small, purple symbol that flew towards Long Houchen, landing in the center of his forehead. Long Houchen's body shuddered in the air. When he fell back to the ground, he had completely fallen unconscious. The 9 purplish golden markings on his forehead gradually vanished as well. In the end, the 9 markings turned into a tiny symbol there, before slowly vanishing into Long Houchen's skin. Howu's figure and aura completely dispersed in that moment. Not a single trace remained. Kia caught Long Houchen's falling body. Her face was also covered in tears. She understood Long Houchen and Howu's feelings for each other just too well. Howu's death was just far too traumatic for Long Houchen. Fortunately, he was still alive. Her man was still alive. It was about time that everything ended. Looking at the unconscious Long Houchen, the demon god emperor raised his hand and waved it at Bai Yu. With a flash, Long Xingyu appeared in front of Bai Yu. He glared at the demon god emperor with red eyes. What else are you trying to do? The demon god emperor smiled indifferently. Long Xingyu, while I do look down on you very much because of what you did in the past, and I'm not particularly willing to accept you as my son-in-law, but you were willing to block that attack for Houchen earlier, so you're still a man with some responsibility. Everything's over. I just want to talk with my daughter a little. Long Xingyu was surprised. The demon god emperor, who was always seemed so surmountable in his eyes, no longer possessed his dignified manner of the past. All that was left was calmness and gentleness. Bai Yu stumbled slightly out from behind Long Xingyu. Long Xingyu quickly went to support her, but Bai Yu did not look at him. She glanced at Long Houchen, who was in Cai's arms, with concern first, before turning her eyes towards the demon god emperor. What do you want to say? The demon god emperor Fengxiu smiled warmly. Child, I know that you're unwilling to accept me. You're not wrong. I haven't been a proper father, much less a proper husband. No matter what happened in the past, I have an inescapable responsibility for the tragedy that it ended in. However, I must tell you again that in my heart, your mother's the only woman I've ever loved. Even in her last moments, Lingxian remembered me. When I heard her last words, do you know what I was thinking? Bai Yu said nothing. She only stared at the demon god emperor with her reddened eyes. Fengxiu sighed. The only thought that I had was that at least I wasn't a failure in this life. Just a short while ago, I always set my targets on breaking through in my cultivation. I also once took great joy in becoming the most powerful demon god emperor in history. But only when I heard Ling Xuan's last words did I discover that none of that actually mattered. What mattered was that in my life, I loved, and I had been loved. It's just like what your mother said, I do not regret my love. Bai Yu could not control her emotions any further when she heard the demon god emperor say that. She cried painfully. The demon god emperor took in a deep breath. Lingxian, the 72 demon god pillars are already destroyed. No matter how many bad things we demons have done to humans, no matter how many grievances there are, it's time to put a full stop to all of it. Without the demon god pillars, all of the powers from the demon god pillars will disperse within 3 years. The demon race that did not belong to this realm will self-destruct, while the other races that were converted into demons will gradually turn back to normal. You humans don't have to do anything at all. You only have to wait a little and the Shimor Dalu will return to your control again. I only hope that you won't redirect your wrath towards my clansmen who had lost their powers. Agaz is still alive. I believe he will retrain those clans. In less than a century, the demon race will completely become history. Everything will be integrated into the new world ruled by you humans. All right, I've said everything I've wanted to say. Please tell Long Houchen for me that no matter what, our demon race had also expanded everything in order to prevent the destruction of this realm in the final moments. Based on that, I believe he will agree to my final request. Reaching there, Fengxiu suddenly laughed. He laughed very happily. Intense pulses of spiritual energy expanded in the air. The demon god emperor of the generation slowly unfolded his arms and looked at the sky. I am the devil dragon emperor, the greatest ruler in demon history, but the demons will end with me. No one can kill me, not even Austin Griffin. The only one who can end my life is myself. Bai Yu suddenly realized something. She cried out, "Don't!" But she had still spoken a little too late. A dagger had appeared in the demon god emperor's right hand at a certain time, or more correctly, a dagger condensed from his own energy. It plunged viciously into his own heart. However, his laughter continued. His gaze shifted to Long Haochen. "You damned brat. I killed you once by shattering your heart. Now, even your grandfather's returned. Do you know that when you called me grandfather, I actually felt very happy? That was the first time I felt happiness ever since Ling Xian had parted with me." "Don't," Bai Yu sobbed as she charged towards the demon god emperor. However, Long Xingyu did not stop her this time. Ever since Bai Yu leapt off the dragon-resisting mountain pass for him, the demon god emperor understood that his position as a father existed within Bai Yu's heart. "Don't come over," the demon god emperor called out. Bai Yu fell over on the ground when he called out. Intense, purplish-black light combined with dark blue sparks began to scatter in all directions. He was clearly afraid of injuring his own daughter. Looking at Bai Yu, the demon god emperor's gaze became extremely gentle. He said softly, "You are my daughter. I know you're reluctant to accept me as your father. I don't have the right to be your father either. However, as my life is approaching its end, I have a request. Can you give your mother's letter to me, so I can leave without regret, so I can follow the scent of the blood she left in the letter to go find her? Please?" No matter how much Bai Yu hated the demon god emperor, he was still her father. Especially when she saw the demon god emperor's life that was on the level of a half-god leak away at an alarming rate, Bai Yu felt no resentment at all. "Father!" Bai Yu called out sorrowfully, throwing herself at the demon god emperor without any regard for herself at all. Long Xingyu appeared behind her in time and hugged her. If he let her come in contact with the demon god emperor's terrifying aura of darkness, Bai Yu's body definitely would not be able to endure it. The demon god emperor smiled, "You dumb girl. What are you crying for? This is good. I'm not dying. I'm going to go find Ling Xian. You should be happy for us. Moreover, if I don't leave, you'll still be troubled. Father can't do anything more for you. This is all I can do. I felt really happy when I heard you call me father. With how you and Haochen called me, I'm very happy. It's worth it. As it turned out, the emotions of humans can be so lovely. You should give it to me. Your mother's waiting for me." Within the world filled with black and red, the foul air surged and circled in the sky. The temperature somewhere would suddenly skyrocket from time to time. That must have been due to the dark red lava that burst through the earth and flowed out wildly. Suddenly, a streak of purple light lit up in the air without any prior signs. The wondrous part about it was that the purple light actually froze in the air, before slowly parting to two sides, creating something like a gate. Two figures appeared in this world of black and red while holding hands. Translucent white armor covered a young man. The crown embedded with 9 gemstones on his head seemed so dazzling. As soon as he had appeared, the white light from the armor easily pushed away all of the foul air in this world of black and red. Something even more wondrous happened to the girl whose hand he held. The girl was a great beauty with long, loose hair. She just hovered beside the man, but her body gave off a pure and refreshing aura. Within the world of black and red, all of the foul air would be purified within 1/3 of a meter from her. I've finally found the destination through the aura left behind in Howu's bloodline. Was the person clad in the armor of eternity and creation Long Haochen? The person beside him was obviously Kia. Kia said softly, "Haochen, you shouldn't worry too much. According to the information that Howu left to you, he should have begun his rebirth already if he could." Long Haochen nodded, Howu will definitely return. Not only has the sealing symbol that it left on me before death frozen my cultivation at 999,999 spiritual energy, it's also told me that Howu could be reborn. If I've guessed correctly, he's left that symbol on me so I can use the same method to seal up Howu after his reborn. Even if Austin Griffin's residual soul of destruction is reborn in Howu's body, it won't be able to become powerful enough as long as I seal Howu's cultivation forever, so the god of heavenly wrath, the nine-headed chimera, won't appear. On that day, Long Haochen, Howu, and the demon god emperor worked together and finally killed Austin Griffin's head of destruction. Howu also died because of it. Before he passed away, he left behind a symbol on Long Haochen, sealing his cultivation forever. In other words, Long Haochen had no need to worry about dying after becoming a god. The demon god emperor committed suicide, taking his wife's letter with him to the next world in search for her, his most beloved. From a certain aspect, he was not truly dead. His cultivation had already reached the level of a god. Even though he did not have the position of a god, his soul was extremely powerful. Perhaps he really would be able to find the soul of his wife. With the death of the demon god emperor and losing all the demon god pillars, the demons had lost their leader. All of their powers would decline as time went on, just like what the demon god emperor said. When Long Haochen woke up, he had a careful discussion with the moon demon god Agaz. Agaz returned to the demons and reorganized their remaining power, pulling back towards the ocean. They returned half of the humans' territory at first. As time would go on, the demons would only be integrated into the humans, having lost the demon god pillars. A year passed very quickly. Long Haochen and Kia, Sima's Yan and Little White Flower, Lin Xin and Li Xin, Han Yu and Wei Yang, Zhong Fangfang and Wang Yuan Yuan, Chen Yinga and Yang Wenjiao all tied the knot of marriage. Under Long Haochen's persuasion, Bai Yu, who had suffered both heavy physical and emotional blows, ended up forgiving Long Xingyu. Long Xingyu returned to Odin Town with her and settled down in a small cottage on Odin Mountain. At the same time, Long Xingyu revoked his pact with the divine throne of doom and slaughter, passing it on to Yang Wenjiao. He said he wanted to use the second half of his life to make it up to Bai Yu. He was no longer a divine knight, only Bai Yu's husband. When Long Xingyu had sacrificed his life for Long Haochen, both Bai Yu and Long Haochen had forgave him. After all, blood ran thicker than water. After the great battle, Long Haochen's renown within the Temple Union climbed to the limit. He was publicly acknowledged as the greatest hero in human history. With that year, Long Haochen devoted himself to governing the humans under the assistance of the higher-ups from the 6 temples after getting married. He constantly took back territory from the demons and also handled the internal affairs of the Temple Union in an orderly manner. Everything had entered the right path. It was also at this moment that Long Haochen suggested that the chairman of the union would hold the position for a term of 5 years, with an election in between to choose a new chairman, vice chairman, and assemblyman. They could serve for 2 terms at most. With the darkness gone, the continent still had not achieved peace completely. Long Haochen needed to continue as the chairman of the union. Fortunately, he had set a deadline for this job. After 9 years, he would be completely free. He could go traveling with Kia, even visiting other realms. To Long Haochen, his greatest pity was Howu. A year had passed, so if Howu could undergo rebirth, he should have returned. And Long Haochen had already made his preparation for Howu's rebirth. Long Haochen stopped in the air with Kia. He let out a resonant call at the sky, and in less than an hour, the 10 undead kings gathered. Sensing how Long Haochen's aura was so powerful that they could no longer oppose it, the 10 undead kings greeted him politely. Long Haochen spoke to them for an hour, which they then dispersed. Can they really be trusted? Kia said to Long Haochen with some worry, what if they do something bad to Howu after finding him? What do we do? Long Haochen shook his head gently, you don't understand what they want. To them, they would even be willing to give up their soul fires if this world could regain the aura of life. Because then, it was Howu as Austin Griffin who had destroyed all the life in this world. The reason why we've come here is so I can atone for Howu's sins to the best of my ability. I believe the undead kings know what's best for them. They started their search. Let's start as well. As he said that, Long Houchen descended with Kia until he landed on the ground. Sensing the toxic air in this world of black and red, Long Houchen could not help but sigh. Destruction would always be much easier than creation. With a flash of green light, the fairy of God Yi Sele silently emerged from the gemstone on Long Houchen's chest. Is this the place you were talking about? What putrid air! Is it really possible here? Long Houchen nodded firmly. I believe that it's possible. For the sake of Howu, as well as to let life bloom in this realm, I have to do everything I can. Yi Sele nodded. Then let's start. The armor of eternity and creation on you has the aura of the Creator God. If there's a person who can complete this feat, you'll probably be the only one. Long Houchen smiled. Then let me play the role of Creator God for this realm. Kia separated her arms before his chest. Pure white flourishing lotus flowers flew through the air one by one. Gradually, balls of white light expanded in the air, purifying all of the filth here. Before long, space 1,000 meters tall by 3,000 square meters had been completely purified by the aura of the domain of purification. The air became much fresher. Long Houchen moved with a flash and the ground began to rumble. The tough, black earth gradually shattered, while the cracks with lava were forcefully sealed up and forced down by Long Houchen. Afterwards, large swathes of soil were scattered in the air. This was the soil from the Shimordalu. The heavy smell of earth began to spread through the area. Yi Sele emitted hazy, green light as the dense aura of life fused into the soil as it fell down. The black ground was gradually replaced by an earthy yellow color. The dense aura of life took root in the ground. Long Houchen let out a roar at the sky and his body released a ball of golden light. It slowly rose into the air like a golden sun, hanging there. After the consolidated, solid spiritual energy became fixed in the air, it released the dense aura of light. With Long Houchen's cultivation, the miniature sun he had created could last for a month without extinguishing at the very least. Long Houchen scattered seeds which he had already prepared into the ground. Following that was water. Gentle water was scattered in the air, like a downpour after a drought. This was not the end. After doing all this, Long Houchen used the forbidden spell of holy rain, making the golden rain descend once more. At the same time, he had summoned the king of Eastern who cooperated with Yi Sele, filling the entire region with a dense aura of life. Gradually, green sprouts emerged from the soil at a surprising speed. With the input of so much aura of life and the nourishment of sunlight and water, they began to grow rapidly. Those were tree sprouts. Their roots began to extend to even deeper places. As they absorbed the dense aura of life, they also began to give off their own aura of life. Long Houchen had chosen species of trees that had the most vitality, yet were also highly resistant to the environment. 2 hours later, a forest had appeared silently there. Under the illumination of the sun, they automatically purified the air within the region enveloped by the domain of purification. At a certain point in time, a large amount of undead began gathering over outside this green world. Indescribable emotions leapt about in their soul fires. The night of judgment of the dead arrived with the Lich King. Looking at the greenery and sensing the dense aura of life, they were utterly overjoyed. Looking at all the undead outside the domain of purification, Long Houchen said solemnly, "In the past, Austin Griffin brought destruction to this realm. I want to atone for his sins. Today is only a beginning. I will use my actions to demonstrate to you that the aura of life will rise up in this realm once again. The heavy, filthy dust and poisonous clouds in the air have blocked the real sunlight. I plan on using a decade to gradually purify and clean it up, so that real sunlight will fall on this place. This realm does not lack water. It's just that most of it has been buried deep underground by the lava with soil. I believe that the day when I draw out the water from below and the sunlight from above will be the day when this realm regains its aura of life. I, Long Houchen, swear from this moment on that as long as I am alive, this realm will regain its own aura of life and a complete food chain will begin evolving. I don't know how long this process will take, but all I can say is that I will do everything I can. I know that it's very likely that Howu will be reborn into this world, but it's also possible that he won't be reborn ever again. But no matter what, my promise today will not change. I only hope that if you do find it, please do not harm it even if you hide it away from me. On the day when I complete my promise, please give Howu to me, alright? The Night of Judgment of the Dead and the Lich King flew over slowly. Looking at the sturdy trees that had grown from the ground, they arrived at the edge of the domain of purification and slowly dropped down on one knee. You are our creator God. I swear on my soul fire that if Austin Griffin is reborn, we will definitely bring it before you, the Night of Judgment of the Dead said with respect. With a flash, Long Houchen had left the domain of purification. He personally helped the Night of Judgment of the Dead and the Lich King to their feet. Thank you for believing in me. I will use my actions to fulfill everything I've said. Now, I need to continue my job. If it's possible, please get your subordinates to help out, so the aura of life can be reignited in this realm. As you command, as the Night of Judgment of the Dead shouted out, all of the undead bowed towards Long Houchen. Long Houchen cast his gaze into the distance and murmured, Howu, I'm here. Where are you? Over 5,000 kilometers away, within a small mountain hollow, an egg shining with a faint purple fell down as it bounced off the rocks. Tiny cracks began to appear on the egg and a small, triangular lizard head emerged from the cracks with difficulty. This video will end here. Throne of Seal novel will end here. Tomorrow will be start next novel Jaius.